Well, hello, everybody. This is Kerry Brooke from Replicon. I'm the Vice President of Product Marketing here, and I wanted to thank everyone for attending this webinar. We hope you'll find the information that we'll be providing over the next hour to be interesting and give you a chance to discuss and learn how you can effectively use cloud technology to enhance your workforce productivity. Before we get started, I want to review a few housekeeping items with you. So you'll all be kept on mute during this presentation, but we want to give you a chance to ask us some questions. And we'll be actually answering the questions at the end of the session. We'll leave about 15 to 20 minutes to do some Q&A. What you can do is on the right-hand side of your panel, you'll be able to see the Q&A box. And you'll be able to ask the questions, and we'll go through them. We'll get to as many as we possibly can, and those that we don't get to, we'll be trying to actually get in contact with you to answer them personally afterwards. If you have any issues with at any point during the presentation, there's also a chat box if you have any questions for the moderator. So let's get started then. Our first presenter is Barry Wilderman, who's industry analyst, researcher, and consultant. Barry has over 30 years of experience as an industry analyst, researcher, and consultant. He's a highly regarded public speaker and a distinguished technology expert. He's well known for his work on value-driven technology solutions and how enterprise vendors such as Replicon can provide real value to our customers. Barry's approach to research and consulting has been shaped by a number of critical job experiences he has had while holding positions with the Analyst Group, the Meta Group, Lawson Software, McKinsey & Company. Without further ado, I'll now turn the floor over to Barry Wilderman to begin the presentation. Over to you, Barry.
Welcome, everybody, to this presentation. I'm very pleased to be chatting with you today about being resourceful, and whether you're an employee, a manager, somebody working on a project, a client, I'm hopeful that my remarks will be valuable to you. So we have some ground to cover. Let's get started. I look forward to your questions after. I'm going to talk about resource and time management from several different points of view. Spend a fair amount of time on managing project work, which I think is complicated but very interesting. And then talk about what's important in terms of software and technology considerations for buying software. And then I want to kind of end by talking about developing cost and benefit models and tie it all together. So without further ado, let's talk about resource and time management. From the manager's point of view, and again, there's kind of a dynamic tension, and I think it's a good thing. And I wanted you to think about the words. So the manager says to the employee, we value your time, we will make clear assignments, we will discuss progress, we will conduct formal reviews, almost like a contract, if you will. And in point of fact, as we move on to the next slide, the work assignments vary by department. And so if you work in the HR department and you spend all of your time, being an HR person, which is a valuable thing to do, you're an accounting clerk, you are inside the company and you tend not to work on projects. You tend to work on smaller things. You measure your time by repeating your tasks every day, every week, etc. In the middle, you could be charged out internally, meaning that if you're the IT department or another department, you're not a consulting firm, but you do consulting work. And we see this a lot in terms of in the IT area, where they charge out internally to other departments and measure how it's going. So it's a relationship, and we'll see that later, between the CIO and maybe manufacturing people, head of PR, head of HR, etc. And lastly, maybe you do real client work. The other part is real client work too. But client work, you're an ERP consultant. So how you work and what you work on, vary by department, and that has an impact on the type of technology you need and what you need to be effective. Now, the employee says, you know, you guys hired me, you have access to my time, you know my skills, and in point of fact, there may be other people in the company with the same type of skills, so that if you're on a project, you could be not replaced, but supplemented if you become ill, and skills really matter. And we believe, as an employee, that that my time adds value, and timely reviews are to my benefit. So you know, although we may not want a lot of structure, structure is actually a good thing because it helps to keep score, helps to keep track of what's going on. Now, if you're a departmental person, you tend to be internally focused, you have departmental responsibility, and you need to meet compliance and company policy. It's an important set of roles, and we all have departments like that. And in point of fact, if you are in a department like that, then how you look at things is by departmental time. And so many companies require timesheets. And then in addition to timesheets, you may want to say, here's my time off. You may have accrued certain expenses, and you may have some web expenses that you need to put in as well. And so although we're years away from time clocks, what I want you to think about is, and this is true throughout my entire presentation, time and attendance, time off, excuse me, all matter. They matter a great deal. And you need to, as you look at Replicon or the solutions, like I do, part of my work, it's all about the user interface. And I love the term inspection usable. I do. I learned it at DuPont many years ago. You ought to be able to walk up to a piece of software and just use it. It should be intuitive. It should be obvious. It should save you time. And by the way, I'll talk about this later, it should be cloud-based wherever possible. Why do I say that? We don't want IT reinventing the wheel. We don't want extra infrastructure. And there may be a bit of a premium to pay, but operating in the cloud today is just smart, and it allows IT then to do other things, which I'll talk about later. So if there are people here from IT, please don't be nervous. I've got lots of important roles for you to do. If you bear with me for a couple of slides, and I'll describe what they are. So moving on. Sorry, let me get to. So let's look at client-centered time. And here it's a little bit different because it's either internal with charge-outs, like an IT programmer might do, or client work with external clients. And here, again, if you're a resource, if you're a person, then it's about internal project costing, it's about client work, and it's about billing. And so just like you saw the timesheets before, and just like you saw about time off, now it's equally important because it's also about billing. It's about, what did you do for me lately? What did you do on your timesheet in terms of work for which clients and when and how much is billable? And again, it makes the entire idea of timesheets and reporting time and calendars and time off that much more important. And having the right solution then becomes that much more important as well. So now I want to talk about project work, and I'll talk about that for a little bit. I have a real passion for this, and I think that this is kind of what I might call the next section is that great time in billing meets project management, and I've been studying all this for a very long time, and I think that it's the kind of thing where we can begin to put the pieces together in a way that is very good for anybody doing either internal work or doing project management or anything of that nature, and I want to spend some time on that with you. So if you look at it from the point of view of the client, excuse me, the client wants on time, on budget, and on value. And I think the last piece is not to be underestimated. We are very centered on delivering value to the client, because if you're a consulting firm or you're an internal company, it's not just about getting something done on time and on budget. It's about it having enormous meaning. And I can tell you a little story that I just thought about, where I had a client once who said, we are always on time and on budget. I said, that can't be. So we were always on time and on budget. And he said, well, what happened? How could that be? He says, well, whenever we run over, we just start a new project. We put the other project aside, we make a new project, so on time and on budget works for us. But on value would never work for this particular client. And although it's cute, it's just not cute enough to be, to be sustainable. So, and what the consulting group wants, they want on time, on budget, on value, and they want repeat business, and they want nice margins. And you know what? The same thing is true whether you're internal or external. Certainly true for consulting firms. But if you are an IT department or another department and you're charging out to other areas, then I'm going to say that you want happy customers, you want repeat business. And I'm a big fan of IT departments charging out projects. I'm a big fan of measurement. I'm a big fan of value. I'm a big fan of timesheets and time off and cost. It's only there to protect the consulting group. It's only there to protect the client, and it's not onerous. Done correctly, it's the way that you count, and counting really matters, and it matters a lot. And so, let's go into projects. What does a project have? Excuse me. Statement of work. What is it we're going to do? What are the fees we're going to charge? What are the start and end dates of the project? What are the tasks, and what are the resources? Now we come back to my favorite, you guys as resources. This is really good stuff. Complicated, because we're going to put resources on tasks. We're going to expect resources to do work. We're going to expect resources to tell us what they're doing and how they're doing it. And, it can get a little bit tricky, and one of the things I want to do today is to point out some of the trickiness that occurs. So here you are, you're a resource on a task. We have a certain set of deliverables. So deliverables say I'm going to deliver this piece of work at a certain point in time, and I would urge you, we can talk about this later, to never, ever, ever use % complete in your projects. Don't do it. It's something that is a potential recipe for disaster. We have resource allocations. We put resources on projects. We have dependencies of tasks. And a very important idea for a resource, I want to know from the resource not just what hours you build, but I want to know, when do you think you're going to be done? When will this particular task be done? Because if you tell me that although it's supposed to be done today, I have another 2 weeks to go, your estimate to complete is going to change the project. It's going to change the critical path. And so, once again, I believe that the resource is king here, and the resource needs to tell us his or her estimate to complete. It could change the project, but again, it's yet one more piece of data that makes life worth living. It makes it interesting. It makes complexity be our friend, because we're putting data in to manage that complexity, and done correctly without being overbearing. I'm a huge fan of this type of technology to manage detail, to manage rigor, and to do it well. Happy to talk about that more later and tell you more about estimate to complete. The consulting group looks at the resources and they assess your skills. Who can do this particular task? Checks resource availability. We may need to hire additional resources and make assignments. Now, it could be the case that we have Fred, who's magical at Java, on 3 different projects at the same time, and we run into an issue called resource leveling, where we have to, if all we have is Fred, is our great Java guy, to in fact move 2 of the projects out of the way, let Fred finish on one, move to the other, move to the third. And again, it's the resource as part of not just a project now, but a project portfolio, and that's also consequential to the entire game of putting this all together. We need to measure work. We need cloud-based time entry per task. I want to know what you did today. I want to know what you did this week. I want to know what we should bill. I want to know what other managers want you on their projects. I want to know your estimate to complete, all that. And we're going to do project data analytics. We're going to Again, and I'll talk more about this later, we're not just going to do time sheets and time billing. This is about BI, it's about business intelligence, it's about reporting and analytics, it's about measuring, it's about counting, it's about getting all this stuff done as part of the project, and it's important that we do that and get that right. So work management is also matters. Now I want to talk about software and technology considerations, and then I'll close with a discussion about ROI, and we'll get you these slides, and the model has 4 or 5 pieces, but I want you to see them, and we'll talk about them in some detail. So software functionality, we need to define the project, the work, what's the scope, the cost, end dates, billing. We have a project plan, you've seen that before. We need to assign resources. Again, these resources are the heart of the company. We want them, put them on tasks. We're going to estimate task duration, commit to deliverables. And deliverables should be something you can touch, not just for the whole project, but for a task. When I'm done with this task, I'm going to give you X. And that's what we really mean by the end of a task and a more important way to work. We're going to measure work, measure progress. We're going to work toward having a complete project. We're going to provide visibility to our client, internal or external, both. And we're going to let them know on a weekly basis, what's going on. We're going to analyze the results. How are we doing? What's our progress to date? What mid-course corrections have we taken? And what are the new endpoints? I mean, it's okay that a project runs late. It's not okay that we don't tell anybody. And so being able to report on this project and its new conclusion is critical. And we're going to build a client. Again, we're going to use the software at our disposal to basically multiply your billing rate, times your hours. And if you're late on a given task, then it's a negotiation to determine, whether or how or what to bill going forward. And that, again, is something we expect software to help us with the overall billing situation. Now, technology considerations, buy it. We don't want our clients building commodity software in-house. And whether you buy from Replicon or somebody else, these guys and other vendors are very good at what they do. And it is provable. It is not a high ROI for a company to be building this software internally. You should be building software that gives you a distinct competitive advantage based on what you do. This is different and should be on your list of software that you buy rather than build. You should buy it. Focus on the cloud. Again, infrastructure is not agile. It's just not. Why would you want a bunch of servers and a bunch of desktops that you don't need? If you can get software that you can buy, you can get out of the cloud, I think it's so much better. And again, it frees up IT to do other things. I'll talk about that in a moment, I promise. And technology, we want 99+% uptime. We do. Now, here are things that I need IT to do. Interoperability. So this is a fancy word for, getting two software packages talk to each other. And it's important consideration to say, if I have, this system, how do I link it to my payroll system? How do I link it to my project management system? And so that's an important IT role that's not going to go away. Reporting, we need a portfolio of reports. It may come from a vendor like Replicon. It may come from, in fact, you have Business Objects or Cognos or Crystal, who knows what. But it's, again, an important IT function that uses interoperability. And the last point here about metadata and business intelligence, I also need IT to do this, to basically understand the data about data, understand the linkages, and to integrate Replicon or whatever into your overall reporting and query tools, so you can have and you don't have to have it all from the vendor. Part of it may hook into your ERP system or your sales and operation planning system. I don't care. It's an important role for IT. And the last thing I'll mention about IT is IT today can also provide an important role in training and putting all this stuff together. So rather than worry about about building software, rather worry about maintaining a server farm, worry about integrating time and billing and great project management into your portfolio to add value. That's where the value is. That's where you'll be saluted. I think that's the way to give this some thought. Now, cloud, again, as I said before, you should consider software in the cloud to be a major premium. It's fast to implement in many cases. You don't have servers around. If the vendor has many customers in the cloud, then perhaps you should be there too. You need to ask questions about uptime and security and all of that, but if they pass those tests, the cloud is a plus. You should consider the cloud a plus. And I think, again, it frees up IT to do many other important tasks that I mentioned before that have to get done that may not be getting done if you build this stuff or you run it on your own server farm. Okay, so now let's talk about ROI models. And then, as I said, it's a little bit involved. We can talk about it more later, or we can set up other calls to discuss it. But I want you to see, again, if you're buying software, then developing return on investment model is important. The first piece is TCO, total cost of ownership. And includes obvious things and some not so obvious, like hardware, software, maintenance and upgrades, opportunity costs. We may want to do something else. But you need to sit down and figure out all of the costs that you have in implementing, a system like Replicon or others and compute the cost part. So cost is number one. Number two in doing ROI is not so obvious, but is the time to implement. And you need to compute this number, maybe it's 6 months or 12 months or 2 months, where everything is installed. You may not need hardware if you're doing the cloud. The software is installed, test scripts, training, data initialized. But it's the moment when your people can begin to use the software. Okay? Now, it's not time to benefit. That comes next. It's time to implement. We're not making money yet on this thing. We just got everybody trained and ready to roll. And now, the third part is time to benefit. Time to benefit, and I'll talk about benefits later. When does the benefit occur, and how good is it? And on the next slide, I'll show you some benefits, and then we'll look at some impacts. But the benefits are I'll say it's really important and really hard, and we'll come to the next slide. So the whole ROI model says you have cost at time zero, time to implement, time to benefit, real benefits, and you do present value of all that, and you compute the return on investment, which is, or whatever else, if your board was net present value or internal rate of return or whatever it is, you can compute this using these techniques. Now, the next part is the hardest. The benefits are not so hard to understand. So we do this right. We can price new client projects accurately. We make good course corrections, blah, blah, blah. I'll let you just read the bullet points. The hard part of all this is the quantification, which you need to do, because it's not easy to compute the value. But once you know what the value components are, then you can talk to the vendors you work with and try and compute this. I've done a bunch of value studies, and all the other stuff is relatively easy. This is just harder to do the math. The math isn't hard. It's harder to figure out what the real numbers are, but you have to do that in order to complete the ROI analysis. So benefits are important. Then, what's the impact of doing this resource and time management software? Well, I think it's actually pretty dramatic. We can keep current clients happy. Less clients go away. We get new clients. The consultants are happy. We make more money. It's all about rigor, and it's all about discipline, and it's all about all this stuff in a way that is not onerous because it adds value. Not onerous because if I'm a resource, I want to do all these things, because if I'm doing a good job, then I can see what's happening. If I'm a manager, I want to do all these things too. I can see where my issues are. If I'm the head of a consulting firm or the CIO, I want to do all these things because it proves what's going on and it helps me get the pieces right. And we believe that this can easily add 5 or 10% to your profits. Using the right software, using the right methodology, the right approach is really a guaranteed success, I think, done correctly. That's why I'm so excited about doing this presentation for you. So my last slide, and then we'll turn it back to Carrie. Bottom line, effective consulting is profitable consulting. And I don't care if you're a consulting firm. I don't care if you do charge-outs to internally. It requires software. It requires rigor. It requires discipline. And it's a guarantee for success. It really is, because it protects you. It covers all your bases. It reminds you of what you need to do. It's really very useful. You should be computing a TCO model of some kind. How else can you make a significant investment without looking at TCO, time to implement, time to benefits, and benefits? And finally, as I said, I'm a big fan of cloud. If I'm a CIO, I don't want servers. I don't. I don't want to build stuff I don't need to build. I really want to add value. And to me, value is hooking it all together. Value is understanding my departments, what they do, so I can do internal projects. I want my guys and women understanding manufacturing, understanding HR, and getting that right. And that means getting rid of some of the infrastructure. So thanks for listening. I look forward to your questions, and I will turn it back to Carrie.
Thanks, Barry. Some great information there. Well, in the final stages of the presentation, before we get to the question and answer session, the first thing I'd like to say is just to let you guys know we will be sending out a copy of this presentation to you all. So yes, we'll be getting a PDF out shortly after we finish the presentation. So I've seen that question come in a couple of times. So I want to just share with you some information about Replicon. So Replicon enables customers to track their time using cloud technology. And tracking that time really helps them to manage projects, resource allocation, their shared services organizations, any programs that they're running, and also to do internal chargebacks as well. So all the things that Barry talked about, we can actually automate in a Replicon system. So what are some of the benefits you get from using a cloud platform? Well, the first is all of your users, whether those are end users or business executives, will gain greater insight into business performance, greater visibility into how time is being used, what projects costs, what we should be billing clients. What this means is that whatever the functional owner, and we have different functions that might own a Replicon system, whether it's HR, finance, IT, or other business owners, that business owner will become much more of a partner to the organization rather than just being kind of the guy or gal behind the numbers. They'll actually provide a value-added process for other parts of the business. And the way that they do this is by getting a 360 view to optimize all the resources that they've got on a particular project or client. The second area of benefit is around compliance. There are many rules and regulations around tracking time, and by lowering compliance risk, we can actually, of course, improve data accuracy, but also we've seen a significant lowering of the cost of errors. Making errors with time attendance is a very costly business. And we've actually seen, in many of our customers, seeing a lower cost of audit as well. And then the final one on this slide then is what I really think of as table stakes. So by putting in technology, you're going to be able to make a process more efficient. You're going to be able to reduce the costs and the overhead of running that process. So, by putting in a cloud timesheet system or a cloud PTO system, you'll automatically cut down on the number of manual processes that you have to actually carry out at the end of the week, month, or quarter. So those are the main benefits of using a Replicon platform. And some of these are unique to Replicon, and I'm going to go through each of these individually. The first is around cloud, and Barry obviously touched on this quite a bit in his presentation. I like to look at this Forrester report that they wrote about a year ago on the changing cloud agenda. And what we've seen time and time again is customers prefer the cloud to the more traditional, old-fashioned on-premise software for many reasons, and this is just the top 6. They shared this with Forrester, and when we look at it, they prefer business agility, right? So they prefer having an agile business rather than being constrained by rigid software. They want to be able to use the system in more parts in the organization. They want to be able to add on functionality when their business grows. And that comes with cloud technology, that business agility. They also want to be able to focus on actually running their business and making money rather than actually managing technology. You know, Barry spoke a lot about CIOs having to run server farms within the organization. It's a little like if you think back to the old days of manufacturing, when many manufacturing plants actually had a power production plant on site, and of course that's an unheard of utility right now. Obviously, we get those from the grid, and using cloud technology is very similar to that. You basically use the cloud grid, and we look after all of the production of that technology. The next is the speed of implementation. So getting a system up and running in days and weeks rather than months and years is something that we've heard time and time again. And actually getting faster releases, and not just so you can get the latest UI, but really so you can have access to all of the latest best practices that we are constantly building into our application. And then actually lowering the cost of implementation, and in fact having variable versus fixed costs. So if you're paying for a cloud application, you're paying a subscription fee, which means that is dependent on how much you use, not on a massive upfront fixed cost that you'll have to pay out of cash. And I often get asked this question, so, you know, what is cloud? What do you think is cloud, Kerry? And I see it very simply as it's basically the modern way that vendors such as ourselves deliver software. They deliver the software to you as a service, not as something that you need to implement and upgrade yourselves. It's as simple as that. So, as I said, we do the upgrades and we do the maintenance. I think there are 3 things that come out of this. Cloud technology is actually more secure than the majority of traditional on-premise software, and there are a couple of reasons for that. Cloud vendors have actually built their applications to be secure outside of the firewall. So we've already built in more security into the application than you'll see in homegrown systems or on-premise systems. It's also more secure because our business is making it secure for you. Our business is to make sure that you're happy using our application and that you'll continue to use it in the future as it's an ongoing subscription. Plus, of course, we get audited by much more stringent audit controls than any on-premise IT department would get for their on-premise or their homegrown system. So we comply to many different standards, including standards around the processes that we provide to build the software, but also processes to support and maintain and upgrade the software. You see here one of our customers saying deploying and integrating Replicon was an absolute breeze. That's from our Director of Technology and E-Business from the Lightbulb Press. We'll also provide, of course, all of the performance monitoring and the disaster recovery and backup as well. Again, something that's not always provided by, to be honest, by your internal IT teams. And the next one is usability. So this is very important. It has to be a configurable system, but it has to be very user-friendly, not just to the business user, but to the guy that's actually filling in the timesheet or the PTO or the project costs. It needs to be easy to use across the entire organization. And one of the reasons one of the ways that we do that is providing all of the data that a particular user will see is in context of the process that they're managing or the process that they're involved with. It's basically a UI that's been purpose-built for that end user, and the interface and the reports that you'll see are based on your role and the process that you're managing. What that means is it's really easy to understand the data that you're looking at because it's based on the actual processes that you're running. And gone are the days, of course, where you have to go to IT to ask them, well, I'd like to see a report for these projects or these customers. The reporting, of course, has to be 100% self-service. And another one of our customers, Replicon is extremely intuitive and easy to use, making it a very positive experience for everyone involved. And then the final area is around using one platform. So what we encourage folks to do is to look at their time tracking needs right across the organization. And something that might start as a simple PTO tracking system can evolve not only into tracking PTO, but all time and attendance, and then evolve to costing projects internally, costing projects externally for client billing, doing chargebacks to internal customers, so through a shared services allocation model. It means that it's very configurable, right? So you can actually use the software for multiple different uses, and you configure that yourself. You just turn the functionality on. So if you want to start using it for project costing as well as time and attendance tracking, you can actually just switch that functionality on. And as well, that unified time tracking platform not only has to integrate between the various processes, but it also needs to integrate to source systems as well. So we provide out-the-box integration to applications such as ADP for your payroll system, as an example. We also have connectors as well for other cloud applications like Concur, for example, will link directly to their expense tracking system in order to pull in all expenses into project costs. So RepliConnect is how we actually connect to source systems, and as Alex Horwitz says, it provides a fast and painless way to integrate with our mission-critical systems and improve our process execution. Again, looking back on those benefits, that really helps optimize that productivity of the process that you're managing. And then we guarantee as well 100% hassle-free experience of working with us. It's really important that users at every level in your organization have a great experience with us. It's really easy. You can go onto our website and trial our application. You have 14 days to look at the trial. It's really easy to buy. It's really easy to use and implement. We provide 24/7 live support, which is for almost 8,000 customers. And every customer has an assigned customer success specialist to make sure that we're guaranteeing 97% customer satisfaction. We also want to be transparent to our not just our customers, but to anybody out there on the internet. We want to show you what our current uptime stats are. So we're completely transparent to our customers to make sure that they know that we're providing them with the best possible service. So as I've mentioned before, the time tracking in the cloud application can be used for professional services management, project and program management, shared services management and chargebacks, or just basic time and attendance and PTO management. So any of these time tracking needs can be solved using the one platform.